So for me, man, here's my top four, and I've been struggling. I had to go to church this morning. Well, I had to. I went to church this morning, and it was terrible because I'm like listening to the message, but the whole time I'm thinking about this segment, like, okay, who who's gonna be in my top four? Oh man, and so I'm like, Jesus, please give it to me. So my number one, obviously, is Bama. Bama, as Trey says, you're not beating Bama like
You're
that.
not beating Bama.
Hey, we're gonna get some merch with that because everyone texts me that about that. So Bama's my number one. Georgia, I'm sure you'll touch on them later. Number two,
Oh
and
yeah.
this was tough for me. The next two in and then the next two out because it was so different last week. Pac-12 let us down. Um,
Big time.
my number three, honestly, is Iowa. I think they're deserving. They've done what they're supposed to do and handle people well. They're undefeated. Number four, I just think of the undefeatedness of who they are. Obviously, Penn State. I like that because they round out the top four. I think that's fair, but that's going to change next week because they go down and they face each other. Number five, man, is where you start getting tricky. I don't like Cincinnati there. I mean, Notre Dame is who we thought they were at the end of the day.
We've been saying that for weeks now.
We've been saying that for weeks. So I'm not really impressed with the Notre Dame win. Number five, actually, man, I just think based upon record, you got to go OU. I don't like them, but they're undefeated. And if we're picking today, we know that's the brand. If they're undefeated, that's who gets picked in. And my sixth pick, man, it's going to shock some people. I don't even like saying it because I've been coasting in this place of like low expectations. Don't get too hyped. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. But my God, man, on 29 drop back passes, we got 29 quarterback pressures. Number six, man, if I had to do it today, I'm calling for my boys in blue, the Michigan Wolverines. We did what we were supposed to do in Wisconsin. And you know what? Check my Twitter. I was nervous. I'm like, oh, man, we gave up a quick touchdown at the end of the half. But then they just handle business, man. They look good. JJ's getting in the game, playing good. And this is based upon just record. If this was today, they'd be undefeated. They had a very impressive win against Wisconsin. The defense looks great. Aiden Hutchinson is a definitely first team All-American, all-around consensus, and he'll definitely be a top 5 pick barring any injury. And he's looking the part. He's not just a freak. He's looking the part, and he's leading that defense. So, man, if that was my 4 in, 2 out, I mean, and I think it's a pretty big based upon what I know we normally talk about, the two best conferences in the country are the SEC and the Big Ten. And I think if that was today, that would be very a fine representation of who I would say will be the top 4 and then the next 2 in.
Okay. Here's where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Next weekend is going to really help me. So that's going to be, what is that? Will be week 6.
Week 6.
Week 6. That'll really help me kind of shape out my top 4 next 2, because if you remember last week, I had Bama, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State. And then my next 2 in were Arkansas and Ole Miss. I don't know that I'm comfortable just throwing Arkansas, Ole Miss out of there. Now, I know neither one of them are going to stand a chance to get in, but I'm just saying if we're talking about our CFP +2, like who we think the top 6 teams are, because to me, it's 2 different conversations. Who do we actually think will get those spots, or who do we actually think deserves those spots?
Okay.
Now, I can give you who I think at this point, if the season were to end now, who would get those spots. I could feel like I could do that easy.
Right.
But who I think deserves those spots, I'm not so sure of, because last week I gave you who I thought deserved to be in those spots.
Right.
And to me, it's tough to just write off Ole Miss and Arkansas for losing comfortably. And obviously I will address one of those games here in just a second, but losing comfortably. But to me, it's to the 2 teams that, I mean,
they're probably
I don't think anybody's touching either one of those teams.
I agree.
And my opinion is the SEC championship, when Bama and Georgia both run the table and get to the SEC championship, that game should be to determine who gets the 1 seed and who gets the 2 seed in the CFP. That's not how it's going to shake out. You and I and the rest of the college football world knows that. But in my opinion, based off the best teams Those two teams right there, I see them both running the table.
Absolutely.
I think Bama beats Georgia in the SEC championship. Georgia certainly has a better front seven. And I'll get to this later, but I said it last week. I know it didn't make the sound bite, but I said it last week that Georgia's got the best front seven in the country, and arguably, when it's all said and done, could have one of the best front sevens in college football history. I said that.
You did say that. I'll give you that.
Now, where Bama, I think, gets the leg up is, first off, it ain't like their front seven's just that far behind.
Right.
But it's going to come down in that game, in my opinion, to quarterback play. And that's where Bama has the advantage. And so, anyways, I think that game should be for the top two spots. But I'll get off that soapbox. Who do I think would be in? I would go Bama, Georgia, Penn State, OU, because I think OU gets the nod. Now, right now, where things are at, Iowa would probably get the nod for the 3 spot, and then OU would get the nod for the 4 spot, just on. Everyone's all over Iowa right now. Are they that good? And I'm not saying that like being a hater, saying they're overrated.
Right.
Like, I really don't know. And so part of why I want to get to next week is because I want to watch them play Penn State to kind of help see how that plays out.
Yeah.
And then OU's got to play Texas. And if you remember last week, I put it on wax. I said I think Texas is going to beat OU this year.
You did say that. You did say that.
And I think that they got scared against they had a scare against TCU, I think, for 2 reasons. Gary Patterson coaches the game of his life every year against the Longhorns.
Every year.
And I think, it's the age-old trap game. Like, they were probably looking ahead to this upcoming weekend, the Red River Showdown. So I know I haven't really just clearly laid out a top 4 plus 2. I need another week. I feel like I've stated my case on what I think should happen and who would be deserving with those top 2 teams and how the SEC championship should determine that.
Right.
But I'd go Penn State and then OU